Hi guys, Joe here, and welcome to 750 Gaming. In this one we'll look at my white scars and how I made them for under £100 as a swan song to 9th edition army building, as this will be my last 750 army before the new 40k arrives. During the first founding of the 20 Space Marine Legions, the 5th Legion Astartes were known as the Star Hunters. As the Unification War spiralled into the Great Crusade, the Star Hunters were among the first Astartes to depart the Sol System, as they were split into 100 companies to act as pioneers, charting and seeking out domains for the Crusade's expeditionary fleets. Their early experience in pioneering and scouting also saw the Star Hunters master the art of hit-and-run maneuver warfare that would come to define them in the future. Soon enough, the Star Hunters were known not only as pioneers, but also as raiders who struck swiftly and without warning, drawing out a foe and testing it before broadcasting the data to allied expeditionary fleets. However, it was this distant and isolated exploratory existence that nearly proved the 5th Legion's ruin. Too far from anyone else to be easily supported, and too prideful in their pursuits to call for aid, the Legion's numbers were slowly decimated without hope of replenishment. It was at near breaking point that they were reunited with their Primarch Jagtai Khan. The Khan found himself as the lord of a legion of vagabonds spread out across the galaxy. But his experience as a tribal leader on his adopted planet, that of primitive Chagoris, would aid his quest to bring the Legion back together. The Astartes of the 5th Legion would adopt the facial ritual scars of Chagoris, and Jagatai's own tribesmen would join the ranks of Space Marine. But it would still take 10 years until the Khan finally mustered all of the remaining pioneer companies on Chagoris and declared that they would be unified in a shared tradition and ritual. In an event known as the Blooding, 50,000 warriors took up knives and marked themselves with a scar and a new Chagorian name, and soon enough the Star Hunters would come to be known as the White Scars. Known to themselves as the Ordu of Jagatai, among their adopted Chagorian traditions was the study of noble pursuits such as calligraphy, hunting, and the recital of oral tales. Perhaps a juxtaposition to the barbarism often displayed on the battlefield, but one that would serve to enlighten, inform, and give reason to their existence. Whilst others would see them as savages akin to the World Eaters or Space Wolves, the White Scars were in truth learned warriors, skilled in craftsmanship, art and philosophy. They found no joy in slaughter, and were only merciless when necessary, or when facing a worthy foe they could test their full ability against. During the Horus Heresy, the White Scars remained loyal to the Emperor, despite their close relationships with Horus and his army. But in the chaos and the confusion and misinformation that followed, their journey back to Terra was filled with delay after delay and battle after battle. It was only after the sacrifices of a fifth of the Legion's number and certain high-ranking leaders that they were able to arrive at Terra and aid in its defence, eventually retaking and fortifying the Lion's Gate spaceport, allowing the arrival of the Ultramarines, Dark Angels and Space Wolves that would turn the tide of the siege, and ultimately the heresy itself. After the heresy concluded and Rabute Guilliman had his way, the White Scars adopted the Codex Astartes while still paying homage to their origins. Whereas previously their legion had been made up of various brotherhoods of chapter size, after the second founding, where the majority of those brotherhoods would split to become their own chapters, those who remained as White Scars would take on their own new, smaller brotherhoods, allocated as the chapter companies Guilliman's Codex would instruct. They remain highly mobile, more so than any other chapter, and under the leadership of their chapter master, or Great Khan, they engage in lightning warfare, outmaneuvering their foe, causing them to chase shadows to their ultimate ruin. When they fight, it is always in the name of the Emperor, and they are a prized tool in the hands of the Imperium. When the Imperium can get their hands on them, that is. Okay, so yes, it's another Space Marine army, Boring, boring, boring. But no, these guys are really fun, and there's plenty of fluff and stuff that you can pack into even the smallest of White Scar's armies to satisfy any role-playing and universe immersion desires. But yeah, okay, on a faction variety note, I get it. This is my 4th army list idea video for 9th edition, of which 3 are now Space Marines. I can tell you that I do have an Alpha Legion army and a Necron army in the works that are really cool ideas, using a lot of proxies and converting the surplus sprues and bits you may have laying around, plus, a few other minimal purchases. And I actually have a female Space Wolves army in progress too, though, again, that's Space Marines, so go figure, I guess. But as I say, they are actually still works in progress with models here and sprues there, and actually, whilst I've mapped out these armies, I'll still need to buy some minis for them. So, let's be honest. It's now May 2023. We've just had Warhammer Fest here in the UK, with the 10th edition starter box Leviathan premiered and the new rule set play tested. It's properly en route now and arriving in the next month or two. So, with that in mind, this will likely be my last 9th edition army video. I might go back and review all of this and those upcoming armies for 9th later, but I feel that to stay somewhat relevant, I will need to look forward. So those armies in progress will become my first 10th edition focused armies once I've worked out what they'll look like come early summer. And then, I'll probably do some quick revisits on these 4 armies to make them 10th legal if necessary. However, this White Scars project is finished now and in time for the end of 9th. So there we go. Full disclosure done. Let's get into the meat of this. One of the first issues of White Dwarf I read was back in the year 2000, and a bit of Googling suggests it could have been issue 251 or 252, but don't quote me on it. Whatever issue it was, there was a 4-way battle report containing both Black Templars and White Scars, as well as some Ulthway Aldari and some good old-fashioned chaos with spawnable, summonable, demon, bloodthirsted type thing. I attribute all my Space Marine love, and perhaps my 40k love in general, to this bright green static grass-covered, Mayan temple-centred battlefield. Maybe you remember it too. It was a glorious article featuring from memory Matt Hudson, Phil Kelly and Paul Sawyer, aka Fat Bloke. I can't even remember who won, but what I do remember was how awesome Razorbacks were, and I still think they are the epitome of Space Marine APV, by the way, and how awesome the White Scars looked riding their bikes into battle en masse. Oh, the nostalgia. So that for me is the quintessential image that always comes to mind when I think of White Scars, and it makes a lot of thematic sense. Games Workshop obviously use a heck of a lot of Mongol theme and motif while stylising the White Scars. They are very overtly influenced by Genghis Khan and the Great Horde descending the steppe to lay waste and ruin to all those before them. So, all praise to the Omnissiah for Outriders. We know I have a thing for Primaris Space Marines. I won't go into it again, just accept it as fact. So, it makes me very happy that we can still do the classic saddled up brigade of White Scars, but grown-up size. So we're clearly going to need some Outriders. But as ever with these 9th edition armies, where the detachment rules are a little bit more rigid than they will soon be, we can use the patrol detachment framework to put this together. So let's start at the top with our HQs. I really like that Corsaro Khan model, but I really think that your White Scars Khan should also be mounted and leading the fight from the front. So a Khan on a bike. You could of course just go for a captain on a bike, which would give you a better weapon flex. Granted, the Meta Chaser, for instance, would maybe tell you that the strongest option would be a captain on a bike with a chainsword upgraded with the Teeth of Terror relic. Sure, but a Khan with a spear is far more thematic, and the Chagorian Glaive of Vengeance relic upgrade modifies it to always be a strength ×2 anyway. So it's decent. Alongside the Chagorian Storm Warlord trait to give him plus D3 attacks on the charge or heroic intervention, and he should do enough thematic damage to have fun with. 110 points. Then how about a librarian? Like a shaman of old standing on a hilltop looking down on the battle, casting his blessings and curses on friend and foe respectively. Except, you know, this guy will also have a sword and we'll get him into the fray before long to have some fun as well. The White Scars love a good psychic power and have a pretty cool discipline to buff or otherwise. I like the offensive mortal wound dealing powers the most, so for me it's all about lightning call. But there was some scope in this list to do a little bit more focus points bloating, so I spent 25 to make him a Chief Librarian, and in the process I'll also tack on the Eye of the Storm psychic power too. 120 points then for him. And that'll be the signal callers for this band of space Mongols locked in for 230 in total. So let's look at the rank and file. Assault Intercessors, obviously, you know me. I found at the end of the list building process, after I'd settled on a list with a certain amount of units and models that I was happy with and I felt was balanced, that I had a handful of points left in the bag. And as such, we can actually fit a squad of 6 Assault Intercessors in here, and also give the Sergeant a bigger, badder melee weapon. A Thunder Hammer even. So that's pretty cool. And there's not a lot else to say about them, other than Sarge and his "my hammer is bigger than yours" vibe. They are as they are. I've said it before, and will almost certainly say it again, I just really like the Assault Intercessor sculpts, and so I try to include them in every Astartes army I do. I know, I have a problem. I'm good with it. It's challenging my OCD for sure, because that's 139 points there, at 369 so far in total. We'll take an elite choice, and select a standard squad of 3 Blade Guard veterans. A bit generic and boring, I appreciate, but I kind of imagine these guys as company veterans, the private bodyguard of the librarian. I see them running around as a foursome causing havoc whilst the intercessors do a bit of obsec maybe. That's the thematic justification anyway. But I don't just write a list and then go get the models. I have a thematic idea and then plan it all based around what I can get, how many minis it will be, how much it will cost, and what I've already got that I can convert. So in this case, I happen to have 3 of those generic Primaris Lieutenant type guys that you got from the 9th edition starter boxes or the Imperium magazines, so go figure. And of course the Sergeant can wield a Neo-Volkite pistol, so done. Bosh. 110 points, 479 so far. So, Outriders. Well, we'll need lots. And we have enough for 2 squads of 3, riding in alongside the Khan on his bike to rush onto objectives and smash through some lines or outflank the enemy or whatever. 7 mounted chaps is a decent sized cavalry section for a small army on a 4x3 foot incursion sized battlefield. You can't do anything exciting with them. They are what they are. So there you go. 270 points for them. 749 points in total for the army, which kind of hurts my brain, but I'll just ignore it and say, yay, perfect! You could try and cherry pick the chapter tactics and detachment rules and things to make a successor chapter, but I found, despite my desire for customization and individuality, actually it was a better fit to just play these as White Scars proper. Though considering the lore and the tribal nature of these guys, there's still plenty of scope for personalisation, even if that's the case. But the White Scars default chapter tactic is strong. Lightning Assault allows charges even if you've advanced or fallen back. The other part of the rule that prevents penalties on your assault weapons after an advance is kind of null and void here, as we don't have any units with those types of weapons, but the first part, on a 4 foot by 3 foot incursion sized battlefield, depending on deployment, terrain and dice rolls, obviously, it makes an Alpha Strike turn 1 move, advance and charge into melee, quite possible. You've also got the White Scars detachment rule of devastating charge. Assuming you are Battleforged, which of course we are, that will give you +1 damage to your melee weapons after a charge or heroic intervention. And of course, Bolter Discipline is in there because of, Angels of Death Space Marine stuff. So my math hammer idea is this. Get your Outriders up 14 inches, pick your target, advance if necessary. You can use Born in the Saddle on 1 squad so it can still shoot. Unleash your rapid fire twin bolters with Bolter Discipline into said target, so that'll be 12 shots instead of 6. Then smash in. If you can get both squads in, then muzzle tough. Either use Chagorian Thunderbolts to do some mortal wounds on impact, or Fierce Rivalries if you're worried about distance. Hit hard with your Basilian Astartes chainswords and shock assault attacks, all with +1 damage. And if there's anything left of what you hit by your next command phase, after, another round of melee, fall back. You can use Fainting Withdrawal on one squad to unleash another 12 shots into whatever remains, then take advantage of Lightning Assault to charge into something else. Ideally, your Khan on the bike will also be coming in hard alongside the Outriders too. And whilst that is all happening, you can bring your Assault Intercessors, Librarian and Blade Guard up the battlefield, and to be honest, depending on the route your cavalry are causing, could just camp out on objectives for the rest of the game and rack up the points. If that doesn't shout Genghis Khan hit and run vibes, then I don't know what does. It's all dice dependent, obviously, the whole game is, but as a tactic, even with average dice rolls, I think it could be classified as overpowered here. What would you have to do to stop it? I mean, get out of range of the Outriders and try and get them stuck out in the open in no man's land and shoot the crap out of them before they get near you. Cat and mouse fun and games. And that's why I like it. Like some of the other armies I've done, it's very obvious how you are going to play, so it's all about whether it can be pulled off or countered, which is actually good fun in my book. So yeah, just to summarise those stratagems we're going to take again, as per our 750 gaming guidelines, pick 3 from Born in the Saddle, Chagorian Thunderbolts, Fierce Rivalries and Fainting Withdrawal. So there you have 750 points of flavourable White Scars with just the 16 miniatures. So, the money question. Is it doable for under £100? Well, yes, though I'll caveat that with I did it for £100 anyway. We know you can get sprues of Assault Intercessors on the second-hand market for 12 to 15 quid. The 6th mini was a £3 taster Intercessor guy I converted to give the hammer to, and that was made out of bits and bobs and is definitely not a Necron relic. Brother, why are your eyes glowing? The Librarian, well, he was 10 quid off of eBay. And the Blade Guard, well, like I said, I happen to have those 3 lieutenants with Storm Shield and Volkite pistols in my collection, and so I just gave 2 of them power swords to wield. So of course I happen to have them, but I still think you can get 3 of those minis off of eBay and bits of plastic for cheaper than you buy a box of Blade Guard. My Khan on the bike, well, he's not Primaris as per the army list and rules and data sheets. Of course that's not really going to matter in 10th edition, but it does in 9th, and I'm damned if I was going to model him as a firstborn Space Marine on a bike when everyone else here is Primaris. So I went to eBay again and bought a single Outrider that I then kit bashed. I gave him a Power Spear, one that I had left over from the Blade Guard that I converted for my Red Hunters army previously, and I used some green stuff to model him a cape, and also to model an animal skull to have as a trophy on the front of his bike, and I was really happy with how that turned out. 12 to 15 quid again here for this converted hero. And then it's all about the actual Outriders. At the time of inspiration and purchase, I went to Forbidden Planet and got myself 2 copies each of Imperium magazine issues 67 and 68 to get my hands on the sprues for 2 squads of Outriders for around 30 quid in total, which is half price considering they are around 30 quid for a 3-man squad box. Now, I'm not sure you can get your hands on those issues anymore, so you may have to go the official route, which means to get 6 Outriders and a spare for the Khan, you could be looking at around 75 quid as it stands, which would of course only leave you 25 quid for the Intercessors, Librarian and Blade Guard trio to get it for under a ton. So, whilst I did my 750 points of White Scars for way less than 100, probably 60-70 in total, if you wanted to copy it, you're probably looking at 120 to do it realistically if you needed to buy in all your plastic, etc. But again, as ever, this is just my idea and interpretation. You may not want 6 Outriders. You might not want a Khan on a bike. You might want to do your White Scars completely differently with Kasaro Khan leading the charge on foot. You could even channel those late 2000s White Dwarf vibes and load everyone up in Razorbacks and dump them into the fray APV style. You might not even like White Scars, but you're just watching this to see how someone else has managed to put 750 points together for less than £100. It can be done if you know where to look and are prepared to get creative and think outside the box, and the books a bit. And so that brings us all on to 10th edition. It looks wild. The detachments are going to change drastically, and so will all the special rules and things. I'm all for it, but I'm very aware that it means in roughly 2 months' time my last 20 minutes of wittering will be superseded at the least, if not completely irrelevant. But I'm also quite excited about the prospect of getting the new rules and indexes, looking at this 750 point army and my other 3 for that, and working out what it would do to make them all legal for 10th edition proper, and actually how they could all fit into an adapted combat patrol game. I'm just really stoked for it. As ever, let me know what you think. I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching. Let's go! As always, I just do this for fun and make these videos when I can. I don't have a regular release schedule, they just happen when they happen. So, if you want to make sure you don't miss a beat over the next few months and going forward, then hit subscribe so you can catch these when they come. If you enjoyed this or any of my other videos, then do hit that like button, as it really helps boost my ego, and do come check me out on Instagram for all my hobbying updates. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next one.